Hello everyone, welcome to the What If Anime YouTube channel. Today, we are diving into an exciting new story that will take your imagination to the next level.
It's part 3 of What If Naruto was the silent genius in the Chunin exams? Let's continue the story.
Iruka was about to groan when Naruto finally spoke. His voice was soft, almost like a whisper. I had to kill him, Iruka-sensei? Yes. Am I still human, Iruka-sensei? Why? Iruka faltered, turning to look at Naruto with wide eyes, surprised by the question. Am I, Iruka-sensei? The fox didn't even take over at the time. I went in while I was unconscious, and he explained it to me. I don't even know if I can trust him, but he seemed so genuine. He said that I was suppressing him while I was in my state, and was still, in a sense, conscious when I did that. He turned towards Iruka again, his face in a grimace. I may not have been in control of my body, but I still wanted to kill him. I was just a mass of my current feelings at the time, of what I truly wanted to do. You're not a monster, Naruto. Iruka spoke softly while putting a hand on Naruto's shoulder, giving a reassuring squeeze. You are a hero. With that, Iruka left the Ichiraku stand, and opened-mouthed Naruto staring where he had been. With a renewed vigor, Naruto slurped down his noodles, gently putting some money down on the counter as to not wake Tucci, who had been nice enough to make some ramen at this time of night, and silently returned home to his apartment. A small smile played on his face the whole way home. Later that night, thank you. For what? The fox sounded baffled and seemingly angry. For helping me protect one of my precious people. Naruto sighed and lay his head down on the pillow, the blood-stained outfit now discarded on the ground. Damn fox could at least accept his thanks. As he slowly drifted off to sleep, exhausted by the day's events, he wondered if he had imagined it. You're welcome. Morning. His eyes shot open into the alarm going off on the desk near his bed. 7 in the morning. Sitting up, he glanced at the outfit on the ground and crawled out of bed, leaning over to pick it up while he walked to the kitchen. Turning the sink water as hot as possible, he threw the bloodied mess in. After filling the sink and plugging the drain, he walked into the bathroom and went for a quick shower. After scrubbing himself of any evidence that he had killed someone the day before, he came out wrapped in a towel from the waist down. At the sink he scrubbed the outfit harshly, swallowing hard as the blood came out in rivers when he squeezed the garment. After a few minutes of rinse and repeat, he grinned as he pulled the now completely clean, or so he thought, outfit from the sink. After hanging the now drying piece of wet clothing from the window, he glanced at the clock. 7:50 in the morning. Academy started 50 minutes ago. He mused as he stood at the table and swished the milk. Disgusted at the sound of chunky milk in the container, he threw the thing in the trash and decided to just go hungry for the day. He went through some morning stretches to pass the time, and after 20 minutes of doing so he felt the outfit which had been drying in the sun. Nodding to himself as he could still feel some wetness, he peeled it off of the windowsill and began pulling it on. A black, long-sleeve shirt that hung loosely on his arms with a dark green pair of cargo pants. An open, orange vest with 4 pouches, one by his heart that contained his Icha book. One on the opposite side that contained the kunai gifted to him by the Sandane. One a few inches from the bottom of the vest and was close to the zipper. It contained a pencil and notepad, while another on the opposite side contained a few shuriken. 2 straps, one on each leg. Tightened the material to his leg on the outside of his cargo pants, contained more kunai and shuriken. Lastly, a hood which was strangely attached to the back of the vest and was seemingly made from the same material, an expensive silk with extra padding on the inside of the pockets so they weren't pierced by the sharp weapons. After dusting himself off and patting to see if he forgot anything, he began walking in the direction of the door. Stopping at the exit to his apartment, he reached to his forehead and lightly brushed his fingers over the Konoha symbol. A frown marred his face and he closed his eyes, pulling his hood up quickly. The Hida 8 was Iruka's, whom had given it to him after he woke up. Needless to say, he was surprised at the time. Pulling his orange hood up over his eyes, he walked the whole way to the academy with a frown on his lips. Entering the same way as he had before, the class was once again scared witless. The fact that he now had a kitsune mask covering his face probably only raised their fright. Iruka gave him a long, hard look before nodding his head towards Naruto's seat. The boy complied and walked the whole way up to his seat, everyone openly staring at him the whole way he did so. Shikamaru looked closely at him as he sat down. It's all right, he whispered as Iruka went on with his speech on how important this day was in their Jonin instructors. What happened? Shikamaru spoke bluntly and inspected him closely, which made him thank the mask he was wearing. I killed him, he whispered with the same amount of bluntness back to the other boy. With that, Shikamaru went back to listening to Iruka while Choji was staring at him with an open mouth, his chips beginning to fall out. So, what team do you think you will be on, Naruto? Choji asked after a few seconds of staring. Well, if it is I think it is, it will be me paired with Emo Boy and the Harpy. You guys will carry on your parents' legacy, you know. Ino Shikacho? Then there is the people with abilities related to tracking. Shino, God, we need to get that guy in our circle of friends. I like him, the Inuzuka. What was his name? He questioned no one in particular. Kiba, came Shikamaru's lazy mumble. Yeah, thanks. Well, Shino, that asshole, he said, referring to Kiba, and nearly causing Choji to choke on his chips in laughter. And Hinata, he finished after everyone in the class turned away, as they had been inspecting the source of Choji's laughter. Naruto, that girl Hinata, she likes you man, mumbled Shikamaru. His head rested comfortably in his forearms which were crisscrossed on the desk. Yay, I know, he hesitated before whispering quietly. Don't really like her back. She is certainly nice and all, but I just don't feel the connection. In fact, I don't like any of the girls in this class, despite how physically appealing they may be. Their personalities are all shit. Again, he heard Choji stifle a laugh. Shikamaru just blinked at him. Ima, get me some older girl, he whispered to the boy, causing his face to twist up in a look of disgust and confusion. Still not hit that age yet, huh Shikamaru? He teased, then quickly added, loud enough for a few students close enough to hear. You're gay? Shikamaru just shook his head and glared at him. Team 7, Naruto Uzumaki. Well, here we go guys, time to see if I was right. Sakura Haruno. Bang, he was fairly certain that was the girl's face hitting the desk. And Sasuke Uchiha. Yes, he raised an eyebrow at the girl's cheer. Bipolar maybe? Then he felt a squeeze on both of his shoulders. Glancing left and right, he saw both Shikamaru and Choji shaking their heads disapprovingly. Sorry Naruto, sometimes it's just the bad luck of the draw, man. He nodded his agreement and tuned out the rest of the team arrangements. After dozing for what seemed like a few minutes for him, he looked up and saw that only him, Sasuke, and Sakura were left in the room. Cringing, he leaned back to doze off again until he saw the clock. 11 a.m. He had been sleeping for 2 hours? Where the hell was their Jonin instructor? Letting the chair fall with a loud bang that made both Sakura and Sasuke look at him, he stood and began walking down the aisle towards the front of the class. Naruto Baka, what has been up with you these past few days? Stop trying to be cool like Sasuke-kun. He cringed his obvious excitement at the shrieking of the pink-haired girl. As she began to stomp over to him and reached for his mask, his hands shot up, stopping her from touching his mask. Just like Inu did when he first met the man. Shaking his head without words, he squeezed her forearms tightly, obviously hurting her from the pained gasp that she gave. Sorry, he muttered, walking past her and to the door. Dobi, where are you going? Came Sasuke's voice, a bit of hidden shock lacing it. Seeing him actually hurt the girl had obviously surprised the other boy. You see, I'm going to get lost on the path of life. He spoke vaguely, taking his Icha book from his vest pocket and flipping open to the first page. Time for another read. Just as he was about to open the door, it slid open and a tall, white-haired man stepped in, bumping into him abruptly. Both froze, and he looked up lazily from his book to see a mysteriously familiar eye looking back at him. Closing his book and putting it back in his pocket, close to his heart which was seemingly beginning to beat faster, he took one look over the man. The height, the lazy but aware way the man carried himself, one eye? He pointed directly into the man's face, his other reaching up to pull his mask off. Inu, he stated at the same time his mask came off. He could tell. After the few months he spent with the man, he could still tell after not seeing him for years. The man's mouth was now hanging open, and despite hiding it well, his eye had widened for just a fraction of a second. The white-haired man shut his mouth and forced his voice into a lazy tone. My first impression of you guys, I hate you. On the roof, he said before disappearing in a shunshin. A foxy grin overcame his face, and despite the betrayal, the pain, and the surprise, he now felt he couldn't help but be overjoyed at seeing him. The mask came over and hit his face, and he dodged just in time to avoid the blow to the back of his head by one Sakura Haruno. "You baka, he was obviously not a dog, Naruto. Now he hates us, you idiot. All because of you. Yup, time to tune her out." Walking towards the window as Sasuke went to the door, causing Sakura's attention to turn away from him, he sent chakra to his feet and ran up the side of the building. Reaching the top, he noticed Kakashi leaning on the railing and reading his book. Suppressing the urge to hug the man he was sure he had considered a brother a few years ago, he merely walked over to a tree and walked straight up the side and into the lowest branch. He could feel Kakashi's eyes on him but ignored it and lay down, pulling out his own book. They sat in silence for a few minutes, waiting for the others. "Inu ni," he sighed, wanting to strike up some kind of conversation. "How many times have you read this book?" He leaned his head back to look at the man who was staring straight back at him. "Who?" he finally asked, and Naruto fell out of the tree. Reaching out to find his teammates, he sensed them still around 15 minutes away. He stomped up to the man and slipped his mask off, throwing it angrily to the side, having it clatter dangerously close to the edge. He could feel the stinging in his eyes and he gritted his teeth. "It's your turn to cut the bullshit." "Another question." The man sighed and slipped his book back into his pouch. He knelt down and stared at Naruto, who glared back. "How many times?" He sniffed, a large lump working its way into his throat. "Did I go to that damn memorial stone to look through the names, wondering whether the man I considered a brother was on there?" He yelled, clenching his fists in anger. His arms worked around him and he was pulled into a hug. He began to cry, tears leaking from his eyes and into the man's shoulder. Naruto had stopped crying, and in a silent agreement between the two, picked up his mask and went back to the tree he had been in. They both pulled out their books and read in silence until the other two members of the team showed up. The door to the roof opened and out came Sasuke, a disgusted look on his face as Sakura followed closely after, basically clinging to the boy. "Please, go out with me, Sasuke-kun." "No." He glanced up and watched the exchange between the two. Kakashi seemed to do the same, and when the two came to sit in front of him, he waved Naruto over. Complying quickly, he swung his legs over the tree, slipped his book back into his pocket, and slid off. Landing with barely any noise at all, he walked over to the group, Sasuke eyeing him suspiciously the whole way while Sakura fawned over the boy. "Alright, now that everyone is here, let's talk about ourselves. Likes, dislikes, dreams, hobbies, stuff like that." Kakashi drawled lazily, his eye glancing over each member of the group and resting particularly on Sakura. "You first." Her eyes widened and she blurted out, "How about you introduce yourself first, sensei? As an example, you look kinda suspicious too." At this, Naruto had to stifle a laugh and his cheeks had puffed up a little bit. Being able to notice Kakashi's every reaction, mask or not, had its perks, and when he had twitched just a tiny bit in annoyance of the ignorant girl's last comment, it made Naruto's day to say the least. "Me? Well, my name is Hitaki Kakashi. I have no desires to tell you guys about my likes and dislikes. Dreams for the future? Well, I have lots of hobbies." He finished, a growing tick mark present on the pink girl's head. Naruto just had to release a little breath to relieve the laughter that was building up with each sentence. "Alright, now from the left, Pinky." The girl mentioned went on, oblivious to the nickname now given to her. "I'm Haruno Sakura. The thing I like, well, the person I like is..." Her arms tucked in and she turned a light pink while glancing at the raven-haired Uchiha next to her. Should I say my dream for the future?" More glances and a high-pitched "squee" brought Naruto's hands to his ears. "Holy fuck, Sasuke, how in the hell do you put up with this?" He interrupted abruptly, turning to the boy next to him who was trying to hide his face in embarrassment. "Dislikes?" Kakashi asked, ignoring Naruto's obvious irritation. "Naruto baka and Ino pig," came the immediate reply, causing Naruto to roll his eyes and stand up. "Where might you be going, Blondie?" Kakashi asked in a sharp tone, not happy that the boy was considering walking out on them. "Stretching," was the simple answer as Naruto's hands reached up, his back giving a satisfying crack as he did so. Sakura looked at him in disgust, a look of disbelief on her face. "Ew, Naruto, how could you do something so barbaric?" She shouted at the boy, causing Kakashi to audibly sigh. Next, Emo. He waved his hand at the boy lazily. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. There are tons of things I dislike, but I don't really. He trailed off, his hands clasped together at his mouth with his elbows resting on his knees. He seemed to be thinking his answer over for a second, causing Sakura to gasp in hopefully. Yay, I don't really like anything. I won't use the word dream, but I have an ambition. The resurrection of my clan and to kill a certain man. He answered coldly, his eyes growing darker and causing the whole area to turn several degrees colder. Alright, Blondie, you're up, Kakashi said after musing over the newfound information, diffusing the tense situation. Yeah, Naruto lazily waved his hand, sitting down once again. Uzumaki Naruto. Likes? Got him. Dislikes? Got them too. Dream? Best ninja in the world. Hobbies? Shogi with Shikamaru. Hanging out with the very few amount of friends I have. He went through quickly, a smirk on his face the whole time. Naruto Baka, stop trying to be as cool as Sasuke. Ah, now the smirk was gone. He turned to glare at Sakura, but Kakashi grabbed their attention again. That's enough of that. We will start our duties tomorrow. Naruto raised an eyebrow skeptically. What kind of duties might these be? Something with just the four of us. Survival training. Naruto got a sudden sense of dread that something bad was going to happen tomorrow. We did enough of that at the academy, sensei. Came Sakura's voice in all its glory, causing Naruto to wince in actual physical pain. I'm your opponent, but this isn't normal training. Naruto had a feeling he knew what was coming. And why might that be, sensei? He asked, despite all the signs telling him not to. At this, Kakashi started a laugh that he knew all too well. He was planning something horrible. Hey, what's so funny, sensei? No. Well, it's just that when I tell you this you guys are gonna flip. Kakashi's head came to rest in his palm, a particularly evil look overcoming his face. Of the 27 graduates, only 9 will be chosen as genin. The rest will be sent back to the academy. This training is a super difficult exam with failure rating of over 66%. Naruto sighed in relief. That was all it was. Thank God. Sakura deadpanned, and Sasuke's face grew a bit more vicious with a trickle of sweat running down his cheek. I told you you'd flip. Haha. They settled into silence for a few moments, Naruto starting to think of pulling out his book to read. Anyway, tomorrow you will be graded on the training field. Bring all of your shinobi tools. Oh, don't eat breakfast, you'll throw up. The details can be read on this handout. Don't be late. As he was handed the sheet, he stared at Kakashi for a moment before finally accusing. And who are you to tell us to not be late, Kakashi-sensei? Mockingly adding on the suffix to his name, Naruto had a smirk on his face as Kakashi twitched once again that day. Sakura ranting in the background about how she didn't want to throw up, suddenly going quiet as she looked over the sheet and grew a look of determination on her face. Sasuke crushed his paper and stood to leave, attracting Sakura to do the same, calling, "Bye Kakashi-sensei," over her shoulder and running to cling to her crush. The two left just stared at each other for a long time before Kakashi finally started chuckling. Ma, it's gonna be pretty tough for you, Naruto-kun. Don't you think you should run home now to get some sleep? Naruto smiled lightly as Kakashi's eye turned up into his upside-down U, symbolizing a smile. Shut it, Kakashi-ni. I'm gonna kick your ass tomorrow. Peeved, yay, that will be the day. Kakashi responded, ruffling his blonde hair playfully. Interesting change of outfit. I assume your little training expedition went well? Yup. Leaping up and giving the man a hug around the abdomen, he whispered. I missed you so much. Yay, I guess I could say the same. Kakashi softly replied, causing Naruto to look up at him with watery blue eyes and a puffed out lip. Kakashi rolled his one visible eye. No, I can't come with you to get ramen. I have to report to the Hokage. Naruto dropped to the ground, landing once again with little sound. Alright, give the old man my hellos. CYA Kakashi-ni. Naruto cheerfully exclaimed, running off after Kakashi disappeared in a shunshin, leaving only a pile of leaves where he had been. Next day 9 a.m. Naruto sat straight up out of bed and looked at his alarm clock. Smiling a little to himself, he stood up out of bed and threw his clothes on lazily. Same ones as yesterday, of course. A frown covered his face as a strand of hair came down over his eyes into around nose length. He blew it up, strapped his hide to his forehead, keeping his hair pushed back in a wild, unruly manner that made him look a bit intimidating. "I need a haircut today," he noted, making his way to the door after grabbing the necessary weapons for what he thought Kakashi had planned out. Beginning the walk to the training ground where they were supposed to meet. 2 hours ago. He glanced around and pulled his hood up, the kitsune mask coming over his face to block anyone from seeing it. Not 2 minutes after he started walking did someone run into his leg. Looking down, he came across a brownish-black, spiky mop of hair being held up by a pair of goggles, much like the ones he used to wear so long ago. Bending slightly, he offered a hand to the boy, who was sitting on his butt, rubbing his head in slight pain after running into what felt like a wall to him. "Hide me," he said quickly, ignoring the offered hand and just jumping up on his own. "An old man is chasing me," he added, looking quite desperately at the masked figure before him. "He wants to make me do things for him," he persisted, insisting that Naruto hide him. "I can do something better," Naruto offered, looking up and seeing a man wearing circle sunglasses running towards him. The boy was now pleading on the ground, and Ebisu, who was now in range, was bending down, reaching down for him while muttering something about having to train the honorable grandson. That is until Naruto flexed all the muscles in his arm, bringing his arm back and forming a fist. He swung up, connecting dead center to the Tokubetsu Jonin's face. Ebisu skidded a good 5 feet back, hand reaching up to dab his nose. He bit back a hiss when the searing pain hits him. Naruto just stared up at the man from behind his mask. "Care to explain why you are chasing little boys around?" he asked, having to keep amusement out of his voice as his hand came to rest back at his side. Ebisu, on the other hand, was not happy. "And who might you be?" he asked, a cold tone to his voice as he adjusted his glasses carefully. "I don't seem to remember the Anbu having a kitsune in their ranks." "An enemy spy, perhaps?" At this, Naruto just had to burst out laughing, holding his side slightly. "That is pretty funny. Ever thought of giving up on the whole shinobi thing and becoming a comedian?" he asked mockingly. "Don't be so cocky. You just caught me off guard is all. Now, explain yourself." At this, Naruto just smirked and reached up to the mask, not really caring about the growing crowd that had surrounded the scene. Just as he was about to slip his mask off, a figure appeared in front of him. "Ah, Kakashi Sensei," he forced, finally noticing who the figure was. Now he was just beginning to sweat a bit. "Don't you, Kakashi-sensei, me? What the hell are you doing? I'm on my way to the training grounds and passing by I see one of my students punch another Konoha shinobi in the face." Kakashi was now shouting at him, causing Naruto to wince just a bit. "Well, you see, here I am walking, and suddenly this kid runs into me, telling me an old man is trying to get him to do things. Obviously I reacted to this the only way I could think of, and punched the guy in the face as he was about to grab the brat." He defends, causing everyone in the crowd to sweat drop. Kakashi suspiciously turns his eye to Ebisu. "Might this be true?" he asks, his one visible eye quirked in questioning. "Yes. Well, no, not exactly." He twisted my words. He now yells, pointing to the boy between them, who was giggling the whole time. Kakashi just sighed and grabbed his arm, dragging him in the direction of their training grounds. He knew who the man was and really didn't have time for this. "Come on, Naruto, we're late." Naruto deadpanned. "We've been late for nearly 3 hours now." Kakashi stopped and Naruto heard him mutter, "Thank Kami, my reputation isn't ruined." He grinned and broke free from Kakashi's grip while the man was thinking. With that, they just continued their silent walk next to each other. "That was a good punch, Naruto-kun." Kakashi finally spoke, a hint of pride in his voice. After that, Naruto just beamed with joy the whole way to their meeting spot. Walking particularly close as they came to the training ground, Naruto broke away a little bit a few seconds before they came into view, as to avoid suspicions. Following just around 5 feet behind Kakashi, Naruto heard him call to the other 2 members of his team, waving a hand into the air nonchalantly. "Hey guys, good morning. You're late," screamed Sakura, causing Naruto's eye to twitch violently. "You too, Naruto Baka," she added, pointing an accusing figure at said person's form behind the team's sensei. "Dobi, why are you with Kakashi-sensei?" There was Sasuke. He was wondering when the Uchiha would speak up. I caught Naruto getting into a little trouble this morning, spoke Kakashi nearly instantly with a cold tone forced into his voice. Of course he would be. He's nothing like Sasuke-kun here, spoke Sakura with a tone of arrogance in her voice, causing Kakashi to give a twitch only noticeable to him. Kakashi gave a sigh and pointed to the spot beside the Uchiha and pink-haired girl. We don't have time for this. Naruto, go stand next to those two so I can explain your test. Nodding, Naruto went to the position and stared expectantly at Kakashi, who had now pulled out an alarm clock and put it on the stump he was stood next to. Okay, it's set for noon. See these two bells? He asked, holding two bells up next to his face for emphasis. Your task is to take them from me before noon. Those who cannot get the bells by noon. Pause for dramatic effect. Kakashi ni? Naruto mentally asked while rolling his eyes. Get no lunch. I'll not only tie you to one of those stumps but I'll eat right in front of you. You only need to get one bell. There are only two, so one of you will definitely be tied to a stump. And the person who doesn't take a bell fails. So, at least one of you will be sent back to academy. The air became quite tense after that, a frown forming on Naruto's face while a scowl was on Sasuke's. You can even use your shurikens. You won't succeed unless you come at me intending to kill. And it was at this point Sakura decided to interrupt. But you'll be in danger. Sakura, you do know that he's a Jonin for a reason, right? We would only be able to injure him if we did something really special. That is probably what he is looking for. With that he sent a wink at Kakashi, having already figured out the whole point of the test. He had to agree that it was indeed quite genius. Kakashi at this point went from slight shock to amusement to a bit of disappointment. He had really hoped he could have sent the pink-haired girl back, despite it not being a true part of the test. Well, whatever. When they passed, maybe a few missions would change her attitude. At this, Sasuke's skull deepened, but he nodded his head slightly in agreement. Sakura turned and raised her hands in the air, shouting at Naruto. Be quiet, Baka. The only one here who could hope to do something to impress Sensei is Sasuke-kun. She went to hit him over the back of the head, and was caught off guard at Kakashi's announcement, which caused Naruto to disappear in a puff of smoke. Start. Sasuke had already disappeared, which left Sakura standing alone in front of their team leader before scrambling to hide. Kakashi rubbed the back of his neck in boredom, looking around and giving an approving nod. The basics of a ninja are to hide yourself well. He called. Who he was on particular lookout for right now was Naruto. That had been a Kawarimi before, and the boy completely dropped off the radar. Two shuriken flying out of the water had not surprised him, and he turned, bringing his arm up to catch them on two fingers, the two dangerous weapons still spinning. Now that he had Kakashi distracted, the real Naruto slipped from his hiding spot and made his way over to where he thought Sasuke was. Surprisingly enough, an arm was stuck out of a tree and had waved him over. Complying cautiously he went over, and when he got into the tree he was once again surprised to see Sasuke actually there. Dobi, he said simply, his eyes still on the spot where Naruto clones had burst from the water and were engaging Kakashi in taijutsu. The man in question already had his book out and was lazily blocking, while retaliating with quick sharp movements that popped the cage bunchins on impact. Sasuke, I figure you plan on going out to fight Kakashi-sensei when myself and Sakura are beaten? At the slight widening of the eyes of the Uchiha, Naruto took that as a yes. Then you completely fail our sensei's test, he muttered. And why is that, Dobi? Sasuke growled, turning wildly back on Naruto. Teamwork. Think about it, Sasuke. You're not retarded, are you? What would be the point of placing this in three-man teams if one were to just be booted off? The reason there are two bells are to cause chaos amongst the team and to make them fight amongst each other, much like we are doing now. Naruto whispered harshly, not really intent on attracting Kakashi's attention. How can you be sure of this? Sasuke whispered back, irritation lacing his question. Just trust me. Hell, I'll even go along with your plan, if you have one. Answered Naruto, muttering the last part angrily. At the silence of the other boy he gave a foxy grin, knowing he had won the boy over, if just a little bit. No? Alright then, I'll tell you mine. After a short time of whispering back and forth between the two, Sasuke questioning nearly every move in the plan, they finally finished after hearing a screech. Alright, time to enact the plan. Since that was Sakura, he is probably trying to find us now. Keep a lookout and stay within range of each other. With a slow nod from the other boy, he turned away, breaking off his disgust in the plan. Dobi. He stopped. Sasuke sounded hesitant. He couldn't be backing out now, could he? Nice plan. The other boy muttered begrudgingly before jumping into the trees in the direction of where the scream had come from. Slightly shocked at the appraisal, he froze a bit longer than he was supposed to and had to rush to catch up, staying well behind the other boy but close enough to see the flickers of his movements once in a while. After a few minutes of jumping, they came across a clearing with Kakashi leaning on a tree in the middle. Staying hidden in a tree on the outskirts, Naruto watched on with interest. I wonder if Kakashi ni can sense me? He mused, knowing that if he did, the plan would be partly ruined. The surprise at least. Waiting for the signal, Nato continued to watch the fight, Kakashi blocking the blows from the Uchiha's remarkable taijutsu style accordingly. At one point he had came close to touching the bells but still hadn't been able to. With one last moment, the Uchiha gave their signal. He used his Gukaku no Jutsu, seemingly burning Kakashi alive. Naruto was looking around wildly, and quickly made the hand seals for Kawarimi, trading places with the Uchiha and leaping back just in time to avoid being grabbed by Kakashi emerging from the ground and attempting to trap him using the Doten Shinju Zanchu no Jutsu.
Like and subscribe for next part.